Tonight, we drift back to the late 1990s, when the internet was still a quiet frontier glowing softly on bulky screens, carrying more hope than certainty. It was a place where people experimented without knowing what might last, where ideas flickered like small lanterns in a vast and unfamiliar landscape. And in that gentle light, a handful of young engineers and thinkers began shaping something that none of them could quite name yet, though each sensed a kind of potential humming beneath their work. In a modest office in Palo Alto, Max Levchin spent long evenings thinking about security, sketching algorithms on whiteboards as the sun faded behind the hills. He was quiet, methodical, endlessly curious about how to protect information as more of life drifted online. His friend Peter Thiel, reflective and analytical, believed that the world was on the cusp of something transformative, and he wanted to build a company that felt sturdy enough to stand in that shifting landscape. Together, they imagined a product that might help people trust the internet a little more, one careful interaction at a time. Not far away, another small team, led by Elon Musk, was dreaming about online banking, about moving money through digital space as easily as sending an email. His vision was wide and restless, shaped by a belief that technology would touch every part of human life, not all at once, but steadily, like a tide rising through the years. When the two groups joined forces, their ideas merged into something unexpectedly simple, a way for people to send money securely, quietly, and almost effortlessly. The early days were not grand nor smooth. The team worked through long nights, surrounded by empty coffee cups and the low hum of servers, solving problems as they appeared, sometimes one after another, in a gentle but relentless stream. They were young, often unsure, learning as they went, yet there was a shared conviction that what they were building mattered, even if the world had not yet noticed. Those hours of collaboration, those small breakthroughs under dim lights, would become the foundation of a company that would later echo through Silicon Valley, like a soft but lasting note. As PayPal began to take shape, it carried with it the energy of its creators, cautious optimism from some, bold certainty from others, and a quiet belief shared by all that the internet could become a place of trust as well as possibility. In those early moments, before the name PayPal Mafia ever existed, these founders were simply young people working towards something they hoped would help the world move a little more smoothly. And as the story unfolds, their paths will drift outward like ripples, each one carrying a piece of those early days into the future that was still forming around them. In those early months, the company felt less like a business and more like a gathering place for ideas that were still stretching, still learning how to stand. Engineers drifted from desk to desk, trading quiet thoughts about encryption, user behavior, and the subtle ways technology might earn a person's confidence. The office was never truly silent, yet the noise was soft. Keyboards tapping like a steady rainfall, printers humming, the distant sound of someone laughing through their tiredness. It was the kind of environment where creativity lingered in the air, not loudly, but like a gentle fragrance that stayed even after everyone had gone home for the night. As PayPal grew, its challenges grew with it. Fraud was constant, unpredictable, almost playful in its attempts to slip past the system. Max Levchin treated these threats not as frustrations, but as puzzles, each one a reminder of how quickly both the internet and human ingenuity were changing. He built new defenses late into the night, quietly determined to design something strong enough to protect strangers who trusted them with their money. That quiet responsibility, felt deeply by the team, became one of PayPal's defining traits. At the same time, Peter Thiel shaped the company's direction with a calm but deliberate focus. He believed in efficiency, in clarity, in building something that could survive the unpredictable tides of the tech world. His presence offered a kind of stillness, a reminder that amid all the excitement and uncertainty, patience mattered. He encouraged the team to think long-term, to imagine what the world might look like 5 or 10 years ahead, even when the next week felt uncertain. These young founders, many just beginning their adult lives, learned to blend their strengths, Max's technical brilliance, Peter's philosophical steadiness, Elon's sweeping vision, and the quiet resilience of dozens of others whose contributions shaped the company's rhythm. They were not yet the familiar names they would one day become. They were simply colleagues working side by side, each day adding something small and essential to a product that was gradually earning the trust of millions. And as PayPal found its footing, something else took shape as well. A shared understanding that these relationships, forged in long nights and uncertain beginnings, would follow them far beyond this first chapter. They did not know it yet, but these bonds would become the foundation for some of the most influential companies of the decades ahead, each carrying a fragment of the quiet, determined spirit formed in this small, glowing office. By the early 2000s, PayPal had begun to feel the weight of its own success. Millions of people were using the service, sending small payments across the world with a sense of ease that felt almost magical compared to the friction of traditional banking. Yet behind that simplicity was a daily storm of decisions, technical fixes, and careful adjustments. Every new feature brought both promise and risk, and the team learned to balance the two the way sailors learn to read the wind, not with panic, but with quiet attentiveness. During this time, Reid Hoffman emerged as one of the cultural anchors of the company. He listened more than he spoke, offering calm guidance when disagreement surfaced, reminding everyone of the importance of building not just technology, but community. His steady presence helped shape PayPal's culture into one built on collaboration, open dialogue, and a shared belief that they were building something meaningful. He carried that belief gently, never forcing it, allowing it to settle naturally into the mindset of the people around him. Meanwhile, another strand of the company's evolution was quietly unfolding. 3 employees, Chad Hurley, Steve Chen, and Jawed Karim approached problems visually, noticing how often people wanted to share moments, ideas, and experiences that words alone couldn't capture. They would remember this later, after their time at PayPal, in ways that would reshape the world, though for now it was simply a curiosity, a small spark waiting for its season. PayPal's growth eventually drew the attention of larger players, and with that attention came change. When eBay acquired the company in 2002, the founders felt a mixture of relief, pride, and quiet uncertainty. They had survived the turbulence of the dot-com era, built something trusted, and navigated challenges that could have undone them at any moment. And yet, for many of them, the sale marked not an ending, but the gentle opening of a new path. In the stillness that followed the acquisition, the team scattered into new directions, like seeds released into open air. Some felt pulled toward new ventures, others toward reflection, and others toward building again, guided by the lessons they had gathered during those long, formative years. Their shared story at PayPal had ended, but something larger, something quieter and more enduring, had just begun to take shape. After leaving PayPal, Elon Musk stepped into the wide space of possibility with a determination that seemed almost calm beneath its ambition. He had long believed that technology could carry humanity forward, not in sudden leaps, but in steady advances that required years of persistence. His work on electric cars, which began with investments in a small company called Tesla, felt fragile at first, filled with risk and doubt. Yet he moved through those uncertainties with a steady conviction that cleaner transportation could become ordinary one day, not extraordinary. At the same time, he nurtured the early foundations of SpaceX, a company built on the idea that space travel could be made more accessible. In long hangars filled with metal parts and quiet determination, engineers worked beside him to design rockets that would one day land gently instead of being discarded. The dream was immense, but the process was slow, methodical, and filled with the same spirit that once guided PayPal's early days, the belief that attempting something difficult was worthwhile, even if the path was unclear. Peter Thiel followed a different arc. He stepped into venture investing with the same reflective focus he had brought to PayPal, choosing to support founders whose ideas were both bold and patiently reasoned. Through Founders Fund and other ventures, he backed companies that explored new technologies and questioned old assumptions. His influence moved quietly through Silicon Valley, shaping conversations, guiding early-stage innovators, and offering a sense of long-term perspective in a world often drawn to quick results. Reid Hoffman, carrying his deep understanding of human networks, began shaping a platform that would help people connect professionally in a world becoming more digital each year. LinkedIn emerged slowly, thoughtfully, built around the idea that opportunity often begins with a single introduction, a gentle reminder that careers, like stories, unfold through relationships. His calm vision helped the platform grow into one of the central meeting places for the modern workforce. Each of these founders carried a different piece of the PayPal experience into their next chapters. Some carried technical lessons, others cultural insights, others a belief that small, well-built systems could transform daily life. And as they moved into these new arenas, they discovered that their early collaboration had left them with something enduring, a quiet resilience that allowed them to face new challenges with patient confidence, shaped by the long nights and shared ambitions of their youth. Far from the spotlight, Max Levchin charted his own path after PayPal's sale, guided by his fascination with mathematics, security, and the ways technology could help people navigate everyday life. He founded new ventures, some experimental, some enduring, each shaped by the same careful thinking that once protected millions of PayPal users. Years later, his work led to Affirm, a company built around the simple but quietly powerful idea that transparency in lending could ease people's financial burdens and help them make thoughtful decisions. It was, in many ways, a continuation of what he had always valued: trust, clarity, and tools that made life feel a little more navigable. Other PayPal alumni founded companies that blossomed in unexpected ways. Chad Hurley, Steve Chen, and Jawed Karim, inspired by the growing capabilities of the Internet, created YouTube, a place where people could share moments, stories, creativity, and knowledge. What began as a small project soon became a global platform, softening distances between people and offering a space where voices of every kind could be heard. Its growth was astonishing, yet its origins were humble, rooted in simple curiosity and the desire to make sharing easier. Jeremy Stoppelman and Russ Simmons, noticing how people struggled to find trusted information about local businesses, created Yelp, a platform built around community experiences and shared recommendations. Their idea spread gently through cities, helping people discover small restaurants, services, and coffee shops that might otherwise go unnoticed. It became a digital extension of word of mouth, one of the oldest forms of connection. Many others from the PayPal team stepped into investing, mentorship, and new ventures, forming a supportive web that extended across Silicon Valley. Their group became known, playfully at first, then more formally, as the PayPal Mafia, not for any secrecy or power, but because of the way they stayed connected, helping one another grow long after their shared chapter had ended. Their paths diverged widely, yet they remained linked by the early experiences that had shaped them. The late nights, the fragile ideas, the sense of building something that mattered. And as their influence spread across technology, finance, transportation, entertainment, and countless smaller corners of the digital world, the true legacy of PayPal quietly revealed itself. It was not just a payments platform, nor merely a successful startup. It was a meeting place, a beginning, where friendships formed, skills sharpened, and futures quietly took shape, one gentle step at a time. As the years unfolded, the influence of the PayPal alumni began to settle gently across the landscape of technology. Their companies were not identical, nor guided by the same ambitions, yet they shared a quiet lineage, a way of thinking shaped in those early days when resources were scarce, problems appeared without warning, and trust in one another mattered as much as trust in the product. In that small Palo Alto office, they had learned to adapt quickly, to listen carefully, and to understand that breakthroughs rarely arrived with sudden clarity. They came instead like a slow dawn, in soft, accumulating light. One of the subtle threads connecting them was their shared belief in iteration, in improving an idea not through perfection, but through gentle, continuous refinement. This mindset followed them into their next endeavors. At Tesla, each new design emerged from countless adjustments and rethought details. At LinkedIn, features were tested with patience, observing how people interacted with one another and refining the platform to feel more intuitive. At YouTube, early challenges, from video quality to hosting costs, were addressed through steady experimentation rather than drastic leaps. This discipline seemed rooted in their experience at PayPal, where success had come not from grand strategy alone, but from steady work performed day after day. The founders understood how fragile systems could be, how easily small cracks could widen, and how important it was to strengthen foundations before building upward. That early awareness became one of their quiet advantages, guiding decisions long after their time at PayPal had ended. Even as their companies grew, many of the alumni remained connected. They met for dinners, supported each other's ventures, and shared advice born from lived experience rather than theory. Some offered investment to younger founders, others mentored teams navigating their own early uncertainties. The PayPal Mafia, though an informal name, reflected something true, a community bound not by hierarchy, but by shared history and mutual respect. And beneath all of this success, there was a lesson that echoed softly across their stories, that the future is often shaped by ordinary moments spent with the right people, solving small problems with care and persistence. What began as a simple payment platform had become something far larger, its legacy carried forward through relationships, collaboration, and the quiet belief that meaningful work rarely emerges in isolation. With time, the myth of the PayPal Mafia grew, though those who lived it often described the experience more simply. They remembered the early challenges, the tight budgets, the long hours spent trying to prevent fraud from overwhelming the system, and the unpredictable twists of the dot-com era. They recalled the uncertainty of each day, never entirely sure if the company would survive. And yet, when they looked back, the memory held a kind of warmth, not for the difficulty, but for the camaraderie it produced and for the shared pursuit of an idea that felt worth defending. This sense of shared purpose became one of the lasting imprints of their journey. Each alumni carried with them the memory of what it meant to collaborate in a high-pressure environment while still offering kindness, humor, and patience to one another. These qualities seeped quietly into their future teams. At Airbnb, where some alumni would eventually contribute as investors or advisors, the culture emphasized belonging and support. At Yelp, the appreciation for community shaped the very nature of the platform. At SpaceX, engineers often spoke about the mixture of intensity and camaraderie that defined their work, reminiscent of earlier days at PayPal. It was not that PayPal had been perfect, far from it. It was that its imperfection had required people to rely on one another, to trust that each member of the team would do their part, even when outcomes were uncertain. The deep respect formed in that environment endured, carrying its quiet influence through countless decisions made in later years. This enduring network also meant that many of the alumni continued to cross paths. Investors funded each other's companies. Operators became advisors. Technical experts moved from startup to startup, bringing with them the same steady mindset that had once guided PayPal's growth. The connections did not fade as time passed. Instead, they widened, spreading through Silicon Valley like gentle threads woven into new ventures. And though the world often celebrated the bold innovations that followed, rockets landing upright, electric vehicles reshaping transportation, digital platforms connecting billions, the alumni themselves tended to remember the quieter beginnings. They knew that those future achievements were rooted in lessons learned long before the spotlight. In an office illuminated only by computer screens, shared takeout dinners, and a sense of possibility that felt both fragile and enduring. In the unfolding years, Silicon Valley transformed rapidly, yet many of its core rhythms still carried echoes of the PayPal story. Startups began to adopt similar patterns of small, tightly knit teams, rapid experimentation, and a willingness to rethink old systems. Young founders drew inspiration from the idea that a group of ordinary people working together with determination and openness could build something that reshaped daily life. This belief spread quietly, not through speeches or slogans, but through the lived example of the alumni whose careers spanned industries and decades. The influence extended even into the investor landscape. Unlike traditional venture capital, which often emphasized caution, the alumni encouraged founders to think boldly while still maintaining discipline. They understood from experience how to balance vision with practicality, how to dream without drifting away from the small, essential tasks that moved a project forward each day. This approach resonated throughout the tech ecosystem, creating an environment where thoughtful risk-taking felt not only possible, but expected. As new startups emerged, many found themselves supported by the alumni, whether through mentorship, early-stage funding, or simple encouragement. Founders described these interactions as grounding, often remarking on how calmly and generously the alumni shared their insights. There was no sense of superiority, only a recognition that each generation of builders faced its own uncertainties, just as they once had. Beyond the business world, their influence reached into culture as well. YouTube became a global stage where stories, tutorials, music, humor, and creativity flowed freely. connecting people across languages and continents. LinkedIn shaped the way millions approached careers, encouraging them to think about opportunity as something built through relationships and lifelong learning. And SpaceX rekindled a sense of wonder about exploration, reminding people that progress could be both scientific and deeply human. Through all these shifts, the alumni remained aware of how interconnected their paths had become. They understood that success rarely emerged from a single moment of brilliance. It grew instead from collaboration, from listening, and from tending to an idea with patience. And in those reflections, they often returned to the early PayPal days not as a chapter defined by struggle, but as a quiet beginning that taught them how to build with purpose and humility. Yet, the story of the PayPal Mafia was not only about achievement, it was about the enduring texture of human relationships formed under shared strain. Many of the alumni described that period of their lives with a kind of gentle nostalgia, remembering the long nights when they solved problems together, encouraged one another, and learned how to disagree with respect. These skills, simple yet rare, became part of the unwritten legacy they carried forward into every boardroom, every engineering meeting, every quiet moment of reflection in their later careers. In the background of these memories was the broader world of early internet culture, experimental, hopeful, and uncertain. Websites were emerging like seedlings, trying to understand their place in the digital landscape. People were still learning to trust online transactions, still wondering whether the internet would become a passing trend or something deeper. The alumni often spoke about how this uncertainty shaped their thinking, teaching them to navigate ambiguity with patience rather than fear. As the alumni ventured into new fields, they brought with them this ability to remain calm in uncharted territory. In industries like aerospace, clean energy, and global video platforms, they faced challenges far larger than any they had known at PayPal. Yet the mindset remained the same. Focus on the next problem, solve it with care, and move forward gently but steadily. This philosophy inspired those who worked with them. Young engineers were often struck by the quiet confidence of leaders who did not rush, even when timelines were tight. Product teams absorbed their emphasis on iteration and clarity, and founders learned to see setbacks not as failures, but as reminders that every meaningful journey moves through periods of uncertainty. Slowly, the PayPal Mafia became less a group of individuals and more a symbol, not of power, but of possibility. Their story illustrated how unexpected beginnings can lead to wide horizons, how a single company can become the quiet root system for ideas that stretch far beyond their origin. And in this gentle recognition, one could see the true heart of their legacy. That innovation flourishes not through noise or urgency, but through steady work, shared trust, and the enduring belief that the world can be shaped with patience. As the decade continued, the alumni found themselves intertwined in new and surprising ways. Some reunited as co-founders, others as early investors or board members, and some simply as friends offering perspective over long conversations. Their careers diverged dramatically, yet the connections remained, forming a kind of invisible network woven through the fabric of modern technology. These ties were not transactional. They were rooted in mutual respect, formed during moments when success had been uncertain and every small win felt like a shared breath of relief. This network influenced the flow of talent across the valley. Engineers who had worked under one alumnus would later find themselves joining another startup, carrying with them the quiet lessons of teamwork and resilience learned years before. Ideas, too, traveled along these paths. Insights about user trust, scalable design, operational discipline, and the delicate balance between vision and pragmatism. These principles spread gently, shaping companies far removed from PayPal's original mission. Meanwhile, the broader world was beginning to recognize the extent of their impact. Articles spoke of the PayPal Mafia as though it were a coordinated force, yet the truth was far simpler and more human. They were individuals who had once shared a high-pressure environment and had emerged with a sense of confidence born from surviving it together. Their achievements were not the result of a single strategy, but of countless decisions, long hours, and a shared belief that technology could help people navigate life more easily. Even as the alumni stepped into public view, they carried with them a certain modesty about their origins. They rarely spoke about those early days as anything extraordinary. Instead, they described them as a time of learning, of making mistakes, of relying on teammates for clarity and reassurance. This humility, quiet, unobtrusive, became one of the qualities people admired most in them. And as their ventures matured, creating ripples across transportation, entertainment, communication, and finance, the alumni often paused to acknowledge the delicate, improbable chain of events that had brought them together in the first place. A handful of decisions, a merger between two small companies, a shared willingness to take risks, and a belief, faint at first, then steadily growing, that they were building something that mattered. These simple beginnings, carried forward through decades, became a quiet reminder that profound legacies often emerge from the smallest rooms, the softest conversations, and the gentlest sparks of collaboration. As new generations of founders entered Silicon Valley, the story of the PayPal alumni became something they returned to again and again, not for the glamour sometimes associated with it, but for the human truth beneath it. They saw in that story a reminder that the path to meaningful innovation is rarely smooth. It moves through uncertainty, through trial and error, through long periods when progress feels invisible. What encouraged them was not the eventual success, but the knowledge that even those who later shaped entire industries once struggled in dimly lit offices, unsure of what the future might bring. This gentle understanding softened the pressure that young entrepreneurs often placed upon themselves. They realized that early difficulties were not a sign of inadequacy, but an almost natural phase in the birth of something new. The PayPal experience showed them that the work of building, the long nights, the broken prototypes, the quiet doubts, could one day become the foundation of something enduring. And so they approached their own ventures with more patience, allowing their ideas the time they needed to mature. Across the valley, this influence could be felt in subtle ways. Teams adopted calm rhythms, choosing steady iteration over rushing to scale. Leaders encouraged open communication, remembering how vital honest conversations had been during the stressful days at PayPal. The alumni's approach to leadership, firm but supportive, visionary but grounded, gently shaped the cultures of countless new companies. Many of the alumni found themselves in the role of advisor, not out of obligation, but out of a quiet desire to give others the kind of support they once needed. They offered insights with humility, sharing stories of early missteps, emphasizing that expertise is gained slowly through persistence and reflection. Young founders listened closely, often surprised by how candid these seasoned entrepreneurs were about their own uncertainties. Through these exchanges, a kind of continuity formed, a passing of wisdom from one generation to the next. It was not institutional or formal. It happened in conversations over coffee, in late-night emails, in quiet walks taken during moments of doubt. And in those moments, the deeper legacy of the PayPal Mafia revealed itself. Not only the companies they built, but the culture of patience, resilience, and human connection they helped nurture in the world of technology. As time moved forward, the world around technology also shifted. Social media expanded into every corner of daily life. Artificial intelligence began to blossom, and digital marketplaces became commonplace. Through it all, the alumni carried a sense of perspective shaped by their early experiences. They understood how fast the digital landscape could change, how quickly a promising idea could lose momentum, and how essential it was to stay anchored in clear, thoughtful principles. This perspective made them unusually calm in moments that might have unsettled others. When markets fluctuated or regulations tightened, they responded not with urgency, but with steady analysis. They remembered the storms they had weathered before, the burst of the dot-com bubble, the early struggles against fraudsters, the uncertain days of seeking profitability. These memories were not burdens. They were gentle guideposts, reminding them that resilience grows strongest in times of strain. In their conversations with teams, they often emphasize the importance of understanding users, not as data points, but as people with fears, hopes, and practical needs. PayPal had taught them that trust was the most valuable currency, one earned slowly through reliability and clarity. They encouraged others to build products that respected that trust, even when it required more time or more thoughtful design. Meanwhile, their own ventures continued to evolve. SpaceX expanded its capabilities, launching and landing rockets with a grace once thought impossible. LinkedIn became a global network woven through the fabric of professional life. YouTube, which began as a modest experiment, grew into a vast library of human expression. A firm helped reshape how people approached purchasing decisions. Each company followed its own path, shaped by different visions, yet all carried the subtle imprint of the same early crucible. And while the public often focused on the scale of these accomplishments, the alumni themselves saw them differently. They understood that these achievements were not solitary triumphs, but the result of hundreds of people contributing their skills each day. They remembered that even the most far-reaching innovations began as small questions, simple prototypes, and conversations whispered over tired evenings. In this humility lay the quiet heart of their legacy, a reminder that progress is a collective journey rather than an individual ascent. Even as the alumni's accomplishments spread across industries, many of them continued to reflect on how unlikely their shared beginnings had been. The merger between Confinity and X.com had been a pragmatic choice, born not from grand vision, but from necessity. The early product had been simple, almost unpolished, shaped more by urgent needs than by long-term strategy. Yet from this modest foundation emerged careers and innovations that no one could have predicted. This sense of improbability gave the alumni a deep appreciation for the delicate role of chance in shaping the world. They often spoke about how important it was to stay open to unexpected opportunities. At PayPal, breakthroughs had come from surprising places, from chance ideas shared in hallways, from insights sparked during moments of frustration, from quiet realizations that emerged only after hours of reflection. These experiences taught them to pay attention to the subtle signals that often precede meaningful change. This openness also shaped the way they approached collaboration. They understood that no single person held the full map of the future. Innovation, they believed, arose from the meeting of different perspectives, from disagreements softened by curiosity, from shared efforts that allowed strengths to overlap gently and naturally. This philosophy carried into their later companies, creating cultures where experimentation was welcomed and diversity of thought was seen as an essential ingredient. Their reflections extended beyond business as well. Some alumni became involved in philanthropy, supporting education, scientific research, and global development. They approached these efforts with the same patient mindset they brought to entrepreneurship, recognizing that real progress in these areas often unfolds slowly, shaped by countless small contributions. Others turned toward writing or public speaking, sharing insights about technology, society, and the delicate balance between ambition and responsibility. And through it all, they held on to a simple truth, that the work they had done together at PayPal mattered less for the product itself and more for the ways it shaped their character. It taught them how to navigate uncertainty, how to rely on others, how to observe the world with both caution and hope. These lessons became the quiet compass that guided them through the decades that followed, reminding them that even the grandest achievements have their roots in humble beginnings. As the alumni grew older, the pace of their lives began to shift. Some stepped back from daily operations, choosing to mentor younger founders or spend more time with family. Others continued building, but with a gentler rhythm, allowing themselves more space for reflection. They had seen industries rise and fall, technologies transform entire cultures, and ideas they once considered improbable become everyday realities. These experiences brought with them a sense of perspective that softened their ambition without diminishing it. They began to speak more openly about the emotional side of entrepreneurship, the strains of uncertainty, the challenge of balancing work and life, the quiet resilience required to keep going when results remain unseen. They shared these thoughts not as warnings, but as assurances, letting younger founders know that difficulty was a natural part of the journey, not a sign that they were on the wrong path. This honesty made their guidance feel grounded and deeply human. In their reflections, they often returned to specific memories from their PayPal years. They remembered the glow of computer screens late at night, the sound of laughter breaking tension, the calm satisfaction of solving a hard problem with a trusted colleague. These memories carried a sense of warmth, a reminder of how formative those years had been, not only professionally, but personally. The friendships built during that time remained a steady presence throughout their lives. Many alumni expressed gratitude for those early struggles. They understood now that the pressure had shaped them, teaching them to think clearly under stress, to collaborate with generosity, and to appreciate the significance of small victories. They carried these lessons into every new venture, into every board meeting or strategy session, guiding others with a kind of quiet confidence that can only be earned through experience. And as they offered this wisdom to younger generations, the legacy of the PayPal Mafia grew in a direction few had anticipated. It became less about the companies founded or the wealth created, and more about the culture of support, resilience, and curiosity they helped instill. Their journey had become a gentle reminder that success is not merely a destination, but a lifelong process of learning, adapting, and staying connected to the people who shaped us. As the years continued to roll forward, the alumni watched new waves of technology spread across the globe. Artificial intelligence advanced with remarkable speed, renewable energy reshaped industries, and digital communication became woven into everyday life. Yet, even amid these large shifts, the alumni approached the future with a quiet steadiness. They had lived through enough transformations to know that each new era required patience, humility, and the willingness to learn anew. They often encouraged younger founders to approach innovation not as a race, but as a continuum, a long unfolding journey in which each contribution builds upon the last. They explained that even when progress appears rapid, the roots beneath it grow slowly, nourished by countless hours of unseen work. This perspective offered comfort to those who felt overwhelmed by the pace of the industry, reminding them that lasting change rarely comes from haste. In their own ventures, this mindset remained evident. Technologies advanced, teams expanded, and global presence grew. Yet the alumni kept returning to foundational principles: build with clarity, communicate openly, and treat users with respect. These simple ideas, formed during the fragile early days of PayPal, continued to anchor their decisions decades later. What surprised many observers was how accessible the alumni remained. Despite their accomplishments, they continued to engage in conversations with entrepreneurs, students, journalists, and creators. They listened with genuine interest, offering thoughtful reflections rather than definitive answers. Their guidance came not from certainty, but from a deep understanding of how uncertain the path to progress can be. And as new innovators stepped forward, shaping technologies of their own, the alumni found quiet joy in watching these developments unfold. They understood that their role was no longer to lead every new wave, but to support, advise, and encourage those who would build the next chapter. In this gentle transition, they saw the enduring nature of their legacy, a legacy built not only from what they created, but from the wisdom they continued to share with the world. As the alumni continued to observe the changing landscape of technology, they often reflected on the rhythm of progress, how it ebbs and flows, how breakthroughs arrive gradually, and how the world reshapes itself in ways that feel both sudden and inevitable when looking back. Their stories had become intertwined with the broader narrative of the Internet age, yet they carried their roles lightly, aware that every generation contributes its own layer to the ongoing tapestry. Many of them found themselves drawn toward long-term challenges. Some focused on sustainability, seeking ways for technology to harmonize with the natural world. Others explored the intersections of science and society, hoping to bridge gaps in education, access, and opportunity. Their interests were varied, yet all shared a quiet sense of responsibility that had grown with time. They understood how deeply technology could alter daily life, how gently or carelessly it might bend the arc of the future. In private moments, they still thought about those early PayPal days, the sense of urgency, the unpredictable obstacles, the moments of doubt balanced by encouragement from colleagues. These memories had softened over the years, taking on a reflective quality, like scenes revisited through a window on a quiet evening. They reminded the alumni how much they had learned, not only about building companies, but about themselves. Some discovered a new appreciation for the value of rest. In their younger years, they had pushed themselves relentlessly, believing that progress required constant motion. With time, they realized that pauses also held power, that reflection, stillness, and gentle curiosity often opened the door to insights that long hours alone could not produce. They shared this wisdom with those who followed, encouraging balance in a world that moved faster each year. And as they carried these lessons forward, The alumni began to see their journey not as a series of isolated successes, but as one long conversation, shaped by friendships, guided by shared values, and enriched by the deep understanding that even the most remarkable achievements are built one quiet step at a time. The story of the PayPal Mafia gradually became woven into the folklore of entrepreneurship. Yet beneath the public fascination lay a much gentler truth. It was the story of people who had simply shown up each day, committed to solving the problems before them. Their later accomplishments cast long shadows, but the origins were modest, a blend of curiosity, uncertainty, and the belief that the Internet could become something trustworthy and transformative. Young founders studying their careers often focused on the outcomes. Companies that reshaped industries, technologies that reached millions, innovations that sparked global change. But the alumni encouraged them to look instead at the processes behind those milestones, the experiments that failed quietly, the conversations that shifted perspectives, the tensions resolved through patience rather than force. These were the moments that truly shaped their paths. Even now, when asked about the secret to their success, the alumni often smiled softly and spoke of collaboration. They remembered how each member brought a unique strength, technical insight, strategic clarity, creative thinking, or simply the ability to lift the team's spirits. It was the interplay of these qualities, not brilliance in isolation, that allowed PayPal to survive its early turbulence. This sense of mutual reliance stayed with them throughout their lives. Across their various companies, this spirit of collaboration endured. SpaceX celebrated team achievements as much as individual breakthroughs. LinkedIn emphasized connection. YouTube blossomed because it gave people the ability to share their perspectives with one another. Even a firm rooted in clarity and fairness reflected the idea that trust is built between people, one interaction at a time. As the alumni watched these ecosystems expand, they felt a quiet satisfaction. Their work had become part of a larger story, one in which thousands of people contributed to shaping the digital world. And through this recognition, they found comfort in knowing that their greatest impact was not a single invention or company, but the ripple of cooperative thinking they helped nurture along the way. Over time, the alumni noticed how often people described their journey as inevitable, as though the threads of their futures had been woven from the start. But they remembered clearly how uncertain everything had once felt. They recalled late nights spent debugging systems that refused to stabilize, meetings where strategy shifted in unpredictable directions, and moments when the company's future hung by the thinnest of threads. These memories grounded them, reminding them that fortune and fragility often exist side by side. This awareness gave them a gentle humility. They did not consider themselves architects of destiny, but participants in a story shaped by timing, teamwork, and chance. They cherished the small coincidences that had brought them together. A meeting requested at the right moment, A shared idea discovered in passing, a merger that blended two imperfect visions into something unexpectedly strong. These moments, quiet and uncelebrated at the time, became the stepping stones of their lives. As they reflected on their journeys, many of the alumni expressed gratitude for the mentors who had guided them, the colleagues who had supported them, and the younger generations who continued to bring fresh ideas into the world. They saw themselves as part of a continuum, not standing at the end of progress, but somewhere along its winding path. This perspective allowed them to look toward the future with hope rather than urgency. In conversations among themselves, they spoke about how technology could remain human-centered, how innovation could uplift without overwhelming, how progress could unfold slowly enough for people to adapt and find comfort. These discussions were unhurried, marked by the same reflective tone that had shaped their early collaboration. They knew that although the world often chased speed, the most lasting changes grew from ideas tended with patience. And in this shared understanding, they found the essence of what their time at PayPal had taught them, that even in fast-moving industries, calm thinking, kind leadership, and steady teamwork could guide people through uncertainty toward something meaningful. This insight, gentle yet enduring, became one of the quiet gifts they hoped to pass forward. As their lives moved into later chapters, many alumni began to focus on the intangible legacies they would leave behind. Not the products or valuations, but the values, the quiet understanding that progress is built on trust, that leadership requires empathy, and that innovation thrives when people are free to share their ideas openly. They hoped that the next generation would inherit not only the tools they had helped create, but the philosophy behind them. Some alumni shifted their attention to education, creating programs that supported young people with an interest in technology. Others invested in scientific research, fascinated by the mysteries still waiting to be explored. A few returned to writing, translating decades of experience into gentle reflections meant to guide anyone beginning their own journey. These pursuits were not driven by ambition, but by a sense of gratitude for the opportunities they had been given. They often spoke about how profoundly their relationships had shaped their lives. Looking back, they realized that the friendships formed during the stress of PayPal had become some of the most stable and enduring connections they would ever know. These bonds had supported them during transitions, grounded them during moments of uncertainty, and offered clarity during important decisions. In this way, the alumni understood that their greatest fortune had not been financial success, but the people they had walked alongside. In quiet gatherings, they shared memories of the early office, the warmth of shared takeout meals, the buzz of energy before a product launch, the long debates that eventually dissolved into soft laughter. The details faded with time, but the feeling remained, a sense of belonging, of purpose, of shared discovery. These recollections comforted them, reminding them that the spirit of collaboration they carried into the world had been born from these simple human moments. And as they reflected on these memories, they saw how gently the years had reshaped their ambitions. Their greatest hope now was that the world would continue to move toward connection, toward understanding, toward the quiet courage required to build something meaningful together. It was a hope rooted in experience, shaped by decades of creation and reflection, and carried with a sense of calm optimism into the days ahead. As this story draws to a close, we drift back to where it began, to a small office filled with the glow of computer screens, where a handful of young people worked late into the night, quietly building the foundation for a future they could not yet see. Their journey reminds us that great change often begins in the simplest settings, shaped by ordinary people who choose to show up with patience, curiosity, and an open mind. The legacy of the PayPal Mafia is not only the companies they founded or the technologies they helped bring into the world, but the gentle, enduring principles they carried from one chapter to the next. Principles of collaboration, thoughtful iteration, and trust. Principles of resilience that grow quietly through shared struggle. Principles of vision tempered by humility, allowing progress to unfold at a human pace. If we look closely at their story, we find a reminder that our own endeavors, however small they may seem, contain the possibility of profound impact. That each conversation, each challenge, each moment of doubt or discovery holds the potential to shape paths we cannot yet imagine, and that the relationships we build along the way may become the most meaningful part of our journey. In the gentle arc of their lives, we see how progress ripples outward, from one idea to another, from one collaboration to the next, carried by the quiet determination of people who believe in the value of their work. Those ripples continue today, influencing how we connect, how we learn, how we move through the digital world with a sense of trust and possibility. And so, as we let this story settle around us like evening light, we take with us the calm assurance that the future is shaped not only by brilliance, but by steady effort, shared purpose, and the courage to begin even when the outcome is unknown. May this thought guide you gently toward rest, and may the soft echoes of these lives accompany you into sleep. Good night.